The only thing constant in life is change. You've probably heard that before. Today's conversation is about those big life changes and transition periods we go through when making a change, be it in career, family, location, or other involvement. And Ashley Culp knows that very well. Since graduating from college, she's experienced big change on several occasions. Changing jobs, moving across state lines, getting married, starting a family, with a few more moves and job changes mixed in along the way. Ashley shares that journey, and we talk about staying sane throughout life transitions, keeping a positive outlook through the overwhelm that comes along with them, and the opportunities that exist within big transitions and changes. Ashley is a regional credit officer with United Producers, as well as an independent consultant with Rodan & Fields. She and her husband Kyle live in Northwest Ohio with their daughter Adelaida. Connect with her on Instagram at ALBCulp, that's C-U-L-P, and enjoy our conversation. Well, Ashley, thanks so much for joining me. I'm so glad we could have this discussion today.
Me too.
So tell everyone where we are.
So right now we are outside of Pemberville, Ohio. We're actually in between Bowling Green and Pemberville in our old remodeled farmhouse, just sitting at our dining room table and having a good chat on this chilly October morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that so many of these conversations take place at someone's kitchen table,
Yeah.
because that's where the real conversation
That's true.
happen
That's true.
for most people.
Yes. Yes.
But you have not been here long.
No.
And so you've had a lot of things going on. And I was so excited when I asked you about doing an episode with me. And I said, the topic that I'm thinking about for you is talking about times of transition in life and moving around and new things happening and how we work with all of that. And your comment was, I have lots I could offer.
I could write a book on it. Yeah. How much
So-
time do you have?
Yeah. So you haven't been here in this house, in this city for very long. Give us some of that backstory, since high school, college, in terms of
Gosh. Okay.
about all those different pieces that kind of leads us into your experiences in transitioning a lot of different things in life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try not to make this too boring.
No, this would be great.
But, after high school, I went to Ohio State, and that's actually how you and I met for the first time. I mean, I'd seen you around at swine shows and such, but
Yeah.
I actually think we both lived in, was it Norton? I think
Yes.
it was Norton.
I lived in Norton.
Yes, I did too.
I know you lived in Norton or Scott.
It's different floors, but
We're now dating ourselves in terms of for those people who've gone to
Are
Ohio
those-
State.
Are those there anymore? I'm not sure.
I just had some students confirm to me that Norton is still. They're like, oh, but
Okay.
don't worry, your dorm is still there.
Oh, that's right.
And I was
Scott
like,
got torn down.
but Scott
Okay.
had maybe torn down.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, good. I'm not so old that my college dorm
That does
is
not
still
seem.
standing.
Yeah, that does not seem possible. Oh, we're ancient, but I don't feel old.
So we were the same age in 4-H and
Yeah.
FFA activities,
Yeah.
and then both went to Ohio State at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, you talk about transition and change. I went to Ohio State initially thinking I was going to be a vet. And the more I got into that coursework and those studies, it really hit me when I was looking for internships. I think maybe my sophomore year. And everything that was geared toward a pre-vet student, I thought, this does not sound interesting to me, and this is just not something that I want to do. So at that point, I kind of switched gears and decided, well, if I'm not going to go to vet school, I'm definitely going to pursue a graduate degree and do a master's degree.
Did you know that early on?
I decided, I think it was probably the first half of my sophomore year. I thought, well, if I'm not going to go to if I'm not going to go to vet school, then I'm going to go to graduate school. And through relationships that I'd made with my different animal science professors and such, and being involved on the meats and livestock judging teams, those opened up a lot of doors for me. And Dr. Moeller actually put me in touch with my major professor at Iowa State, and I was able to get an
Tell folks who Dr. Moeller is.
So Dr. Steve Moeller, he's a professor in the animal science department at Ohio State, primarily a swine geneticist. And he had received all of his degrees from Iowa State, so he still had a lot of connections there. And I'd always been really intrigued with Iowa. We'd taken trips out there to look for 4-H calves and such. And I just thought it was a really beautiful country. I mean, if you think of all the places that you want to live, Iowa is probably not the top 10 for a lot of people.
But it is top 10 for me, by the
Yeah.
way. I have often told people that I love Ohio because my family is here and my friends are here. I mean, this is my home. I'm
Yes,
probably not
yes.
leaving Ohio at this point in my
Yeah.
life. But if I didn't live in Ohio, I would live in an I state. Well, not Idaho. That's too far away. Sorry. I would live in Indiana, Illinois, or Iowa. And I've often told people like I don't even know what it is for sure, but I love Iowa. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you on that.
I loved it there. I wish I would have spent more time there. But anyways, I was offered an assistantship. Sorry, an assistantship. And I did my master's degree at Iowa State, and animal breeding and genetics was my major.
Yeah.
And that was one of the best decisions I ever made for myself, was to go to graduate school there. I met some fantastic people. It was a great experience for me. It was a long ways away from home. And, that's kind of a point where you really find out a lot about yourself and how to survive on your own, kind of a thing.
So your move to Iowa State was really kind of your first, moving to college at Ohio State.
Moving to college,
but your first kind of like adult move
Yeah.
was heading to grad school out of state.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State, that was definitely, going someplace where you're on your own and, mom and dad aren't there anymore. And that, being at Ohio State really made me have a deeper appreciation for home. But, I was 2 hours away. If I wanted to go home, I really could. And that wasn't the case out in Ames. I mean, it was an 8.5, 9-hour drive, and all the things that encompass grad school, you just can't pick up and, go wherever you want, whenever you want.
If you think you're busy as an undergrad,
don't even get me started on that.
The hours of writing.
And I mean,
reading.
writing a thesis, people oftentimes ask me, well, are you going to get your PhD? No, I think this is the end of the road for me. And the only benefit I see is that people could call me doctor after that. But so I never pursued that. But I was at Iowa State for about 2 years. I finished my master's, and I was given the opportunity to go to Michigan State, and I was really on the faculty there. I was an instructor. I was an advisor to students, and one of my main jobs was I coached the livestock judging team up there. That was a big transition in my life. It was exciting because I knew I would be closer to home, so I was kind of within that 2-hour distance again. And so, all the people that I was close to at home or in Ohio, I was going to be proximity-wise, much closer to them. And I was excited about that. But boy, being 24 and advising students and teaching students, that I think I was pretty naive, going into that, thinking it was much tougher than I thought it was going to be. Do you felt like it pushed you into adulthood really quickly to be in that role, or because you were working with college students, did it feel like you were still? It was a little bit of an awkward phase because you're surrounded by all of these college students. Yeah. And in a sense, you're really not very much older than them. But I felt like, you really had to walk that fine line where, I'm their advisor or their coach, and I have to exhibit some level of maturity, and I can't be going to the Whiskey Barrel every Wednesday night with them, So I felt like I had to draw some kind of a line in the sand. But on the other hand, I remember Dr. Turner would always say, being around college students, it really keeps you young. And there's a lot of truth to that too. You're up on all the slang and all the new hot trends.
I have to say that one of the things I realized I missed about working at Ohio State after my own grad school experience was that a year or two after I was not on campus anymore, I was like, I don't know what the fall fashion trends are. I know, because I don't have
probably leggings and Uggs.
Leggings and Uggs. Yeah. I'm glad I skipped those. But Yeah, it does kind of keep you connected to that, which is
It does.
fun
Yeah.
in certain ways. But
And I did. And
Yeah.
I did. There were a lot of
Yeah.
things that were a lot of fun, like traveling with my teams and
sure.
building that, that relationship with those students. That was a lot of fun.
And so it was during that time period as well that you met your now husband?
Yes, he
Yeah.
was. So I was at Michigan State and he was at Purdue working on his master's and helping coach the judging team there. So we were always at contests and such together.
Yeah.
And I actually think it was a contest at Ohio State where we actually kind of exchanged numbers, and that was kind of our first time hanging out together. And then the rest is kind of history there. And when we got engaged, it was at that point, and I was already at a time in my career or my position at MSU that I thought, I think I'm ready to move on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got engaged and he took a job at Ohio State. And I thought, well, now I really can't stay at Michigan State. And so it was at that point that I applied for and got a job with Beringer Ingelheim as a swine sales rep, which was tremendously different than being in academia. That was another curveball, another transition. A lot to learn there.
It's totally different type of work.
Totally different.
Different paces.
Very much more fast paced.
Yeah.
Nothing against our academic or our university system, but things move a lot slower there. And in corporate America,
and on purpose. It's
Yeah.
built that way to. Yes, but it is.
you're
It's
right.
just totally different paces, different purposes.
different expectations.
Yeah.
And so, so there, I moved to Bowling Green, I think in March, and I was in the middle of planning a wedding and getting ready to move again.
Bowling Green being your hometown.
Bowling Green, my
Yeah.
hometown, because we were getting married in August. And so I thought, well, with being a sales rep, I could live wherever
Sure.
I wanted to, kind
Yeah.
of within the territory. So I moved there I moved to Bowling Green for a short period of time. And then in August, a couple weeks before we got married, I moved to Hilliard. And
for those of you who aren't from Ohio, Hilliard is a suburb of Columbus.
Yep.
So you moved to the Columbus area, and Kyle was living in
And
so you're now both in the same city.
now we were finally in the same zip code, which was fantastic, something that had been foreign to us, which you and BJ can
That's
relate to.
Yeah, we didn't live in the same state until a couple months before we were married.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I know this is kind of getting a little off topic. People's long distance relationships are hard, but they can work, if you want them to, and if you want to put the time and the effort into it. So yeah, I changed jobs, planned a wedding, moved twice. There was a lot of transition there at that point in my life. Let's see, I think I was with BI for about 2.5 years, and it was at that point in Kyle's and I's relationship that we were really getting serious about starting a family, and that was something that was important to us. And with BI, I was traveling a lot. I was a swine rep, so I had to go where the pigs were. Not a lot of pigs in Hilliard, Ohio.
Right.
So, there were nights in hotels and on the road, and I just for me that wasn't a good fit, having a family and having that type of a role. So I found out they were building a new farm credit office in London, Ohio, which was about a 10-15 minute drive from our house. I had no financial experience, besides doing our own. But the thing Farm Credit was great about is they primarily wanted people with an ag background, and they thought, well, we'll teach you the lending, we'll teach you the financial piece. So I applied for that job, got it, and that began embarked on a new change, a new transition. That was short-lived, however. When I took the job at Farm Credit, I knew that Kyle probably wasn't going to be at Ohio State for much, much longer, but I didn't really, I had no idea what that next step was going to be. I didn't know what he was going to do and where that would take us. We could have lived in Champaign County, Ohio, for all I know.
Yeah.
But he finished up his PhD, decided he was going to hang up his hat in terms of coaching. And at the time I was expecting our daughter, our first child. And he found out through a former teammate's dad that there was a position opening up at the Andersons in Maumee, Ohio, which is not far from my family and where I grew up. So Kyle, being the good husband that he is, thought, we're going to start a family. This would move us closer to family. I think this would be a good change for us. So I'd only been at Farm Credit for maybe a year and a half, and there's no Farm Credit office in this area that's very close. So I changed jobs again, and there was this role with United Producers came available, and it was a deal where, you'll be field-based, you can work out of your home, you'll travel to meet with customers, so on and so forth. But I was essentially still going to be doing the same thing. I'm a loan officer for them, so I could take much of the same roles and responsibilities and those tools and take them with this job. So in January 2015, we moved to Northwest Ohio. I think we moved twice within 3 months. We both started new jobs. And about 5 months later, we welcomed our first child. And, I guess that wasn't enough for us. We were only in that home for about a year and a half, decided we needed to move again. And now here we are outside of Pemberville.
So
but it's all been good.
Where we are now sitting at your kitchen table. And so in the last 15 years, really, I mean, you've moved a dozen times. I wasn't counting, but probably about a dozen times.
Yeah.
And have changed jobs as life has changed and grown with some different things. And you've obviously started a family now too. And so, life changes.
It does.
At a pretty quick pace.
Very much so. And you better be prepared for it. Yeah.
So, what I had wanted to talk with you about then today is like, how do we handle all those pieces from a stress standpoint? I mean, maybe there's practical tips, right?
Yeah.
And like handling stress and doing that, but also just how do we keep, our mindset really positive and in a really thriving place while we're maybe going through lots of changes? Because for you, sometimes it's been a time where you changed jobs and moved and did a lot of things at once. But also sometimes it was just, I'm changing jobs and that's the only thing that's changing.
Yeah.
But that affects the other things in your life too. So anytime one sort of piece of the puzzle changes, it can really have an impact on the other pieces, even if the other pieces aren't changing specifically. Yeah. So you've kind of been in like all those situations.
Yeah.
So you're like my local expert on.
Oh, gosh. That's a lot of pressure. Yeah.
Okay. So, first question about that. What do you think we need to watch out for in those kinds of situations? I mean, things that come to mind to me are just like feelings of overwhelm or angst and things like that. But I mean, what did you experience? What do you think other people probably also need to watch out for in those kinds of, anytime you're making a big change like that in your life?
Oh, I mean, absolutely being overwhelmed. And even thinking back to college, that first day of class was always so overwhelming. They throw the syllabus at you and talk about all of the different projects and the exams that you're going to that are going to be coming up throughout the semester. And I remember there were times I would just call my mom frantic and, how am I ever going to handle this? And through any time of change, I mean, well, she's kind of always been the person that's talked me off the ledge, it's going to be okay. And you just have to take one thing at a time. And something that I've been notorious of, and I try to work on and improve upon as time passes and the older I get, I focus too much on all of the change that's happening and what could go wrong. And is this really the right decision? Is this going to be the right job for me? Who am I going to eat lunch with tomorrow? You name it, I would worry about it. And something Kyle has been really, to his credit, that he's been really good about is, why don't you stop thinking about everything that could go wrong and think about all of the positives and how this could all be really good change? When we moved up here to Northwest Ohio, I know my hormones played a big part in that as well. But I was very apprehensive about that. I hadn't been at my job very long. Everything there was comfortable. And, I felt like we were pretty settled into our life there. And looking back, I mean, it was so silly to be so upset about all that. Everything worked out. And now my daughter has so many people here that love her, and we have a great support system. And this was absolutely the right thing, the right change for us. So, rather than feeling overwhelmed, just take one bite of the elephant at a time and just take it as you can and try to stay focused on the positive things.
I think as a women, we especially tend to go, think about what could go wrong. Because I think I hate to say that, but we're just more, I don't know if we're just more worrisome or it's our nurturing nature to worry about the different pieces. But I love that point because in anything, if you're moving, it is the, what if this doesn't go right with the house? And if it's a new job, it can be you're right, as simple as, who am I going to eat lunch with?
Yes.
Because we're just used to our routines and we change up all those things. Did you feel like those feelings were even bigger when there were multiple pieces of your life changing at the same time? Or did it not really matter? Was it sort of an equal amount of overwhelm if it was just one piece or a lot of pieces?
I just have the personality that if change is coming, I mean, I'm probably going to have some sense of being overwhelmed regardless.
Okay.
But yes, when there's multiple things happening all at once, it's good and bad. Your mind can't pinpoint one thing necessarily and worry about that to death. There's a lot of things happening. And so your mind's occupied, you're busy all the time versus, just one job change, and you can really overthink that a lot. But for me, those times where there have been multiple things happening at once, it's been stressful and it's been a lot to deal with. But, I think the important thing too is that you take some downtime. You need time to decompress and do some things that you enjoy rather than just being consumed by all of the transition and all of the change. And it's important to take some time for yourself and relax.
That leads beautifully into the next question I was going to ask is, what can we do to stay sane and happy and at peace when we are in those times? Because hardly anyone, and some people do, and it's a great path for them, but it just seems that anymore, hardly anyone, moves into the house they're going to live in forever in their early 20s and works with the same company. Yep. And so most of us in life are going to have these times where we change jobs or leave a comfortable situation and start our own business or move houses or do that all at the same time or start a family while we're changing a job or whatever that might be. So when we get into whatever those situations are like for us, what are some of the things that you think we can do to stay happy and sane? And so maybe taking time out is really good.
I mean, for me,
I like that.
My personality, I'm kind of right on that introvert, extrovert line. So I enjoy being around people, but I also need time to myself. And I know that about myself. So I need that to stay sane and be happy. I wish I could tell you that I go out and exercise and that really clears my head. Yeah, that doesn't really happen. But something that
meditate for an hour in the morning,
do yoga. Yeah, I know. I wish I did those things, but it doesn't happen. I think part of it too is not getting yourself to a point where you're so overwhelmed. You have to learn how to say no to some things, and maybe not for, this isn't a no forever kind of thing, right? But just no, not right now.
Not right.
I need to really focus and hone in on these big things that are happening, wrap my mind around this, and then perhaps I can be on your board or, teach Sunday school, whatever that may be.
Well, and that's such a great example too, because we like to say yes, especially to things that we are genuinely interested in, but maybe it's not the right time because we only do have so much capacity.
Yeah.
And so when you're changing jobs or moving houses or remodeling your entire kitchen, or whatever, those kind of big things can be, that takes up space in our life. And so if that's going to take up space in our life for a while, we have to realize that's space we don't have for something else. But if we say yes to all those things because we pretend like, oh, moving across the country is not a big deal, or renovating our kitchen, or whatever. I remember my mom and dad remodeled totally renovated their entire kitchen when I was, I don't know, junior high, maybe. I'm not sure. Like old enough to know what was going on for sure. Not old enough that I actually did any of the cooking.
Yeah.
But I don't, like, looking back, I'm like, my mom handled it beautifully, but I'm like, I don't remember what we ate. Like, cause we didn't have a kitchen, but we didn't eat out because that just wasn't my mom's style. Like, so I don't know if I think maybe she took an old stove and it was in the kitchen. Like, I don't know, but I'm like, sometime I'd like to ask her, like, okay, what did you get rid of though in that time of your life? Because that became like this huge thing for the 4 months that it was happening. And so sometimes it's just a short period of time like that.
And I went through something similar when I was in elementary. They gutted our entire house. So we kind of went from room to room and just lived in one specific room. And I mean, I think there were three of us kids at the time. I mean, geez, now looking back as a parent,
I know.
How in the world? But
my brothers and I slept on, because it was earlier when I was in middle school. I think it was the 5th grade when I got my own bedroom. Prior to that, I shared a room with my 2 younger brothers, which, I don't know that they remember, I remember, and I don't necessarily have fond memories, of it because of course I was the girl having to share a room with her brothers.
Right, yeah.
But for some period of time during that whole project, we slept on mattresses in the basement. My parents had finished their basement off earlier.
Okay.
It's not like they didn't just stick us down there like on the cement floor.
Get in the dungy basement.
But I think like our dressers were in the living room and our mattresses were down there. And it was sort of fun because it felt like we were camping.
Yeah.
When you're that age, it was fun. And so I don't know that my parents thought of it that way.
Well, but that's a good point. I mean, maybe we all need to have more of that childlike mentality.
Oh, that's great. The expectations.
Yeah, this is something really fun. This is a new adventure.
Right.
And that
it's totally okay when you're in the process of moving to just buy a bag of 1,000 paper plates.
Yes.
And use them every night and not even think about doing dishes for 6 weeks.
It is okay to use the microwave. Yes.
Yeah, I think our expectations for some of those things are just, we feel like we want to keep as much of our life the same as possible. And I think there's value in that, in keeping some of our routines intact. But we also have to make sure that our expectations of what the rest of our life looks like during a transition are real and realistic. Yeah. Like maybe we shouldn't volunteer to host Thanksgiving.
Right.
If we've just moved or had a baby or undertaking something else that just is like a really big change in our life. We don't need to overflow things more than what our capacity can take.
Yeah, and when we first moved, when we first moved up here, and we had both been changing jobs, we were moving, we were expecting a child. As far as extracurriculars went, we didn't do a lot. I mean, we joined a new church, but now we're much more involved in the community and things like that. But at that point, we really weren't. And I don't think that it was necessarily completely on purpose, but looking back, I think that was smart because it allowed us to adapt and adjust to the different changes, just being in a new atmosphere and then becoming new parents as well. And when there's all that other noise, I don't think you can really fully embrace those changes and make the most of them.
There's so much good stuff there. You really do need to give yourself time to kind of settle in. And I think that the temptations that we have to push ourselves beyond our capacity, like not saying no to things, is because maybe we feel like others' expectations of us are still really high. When I think that in reality, most people, especially when you're in a rural community too, with people who know you and love you and, they're like, didn't you just move here and have a baby? Like they're
Yeah.
expecting you to take time to settle in before you sign up to do, all
Yeah.
these things. And so I think oftentimes the temptation to push ourselves beyond what we maybe ought to take on during those times comes more from ourselves
Oh,
than it
yeah.
does from other people. Do you
For
think?
sure.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is I don't want to let people down.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when someone approaches me about something, I feel like, oh, it's really, I'm really flattered that they asked, and I don't want to let them down by saying no. But
Yeah.
especially now, there's only so many hours in the day, and you really need to prioritize what's important to you and what you want to be, what you want to do, and what you want to be involved with. And a lot of people say, oh, there's no time. There's no time. I mean, you'll make time for the things that you want.
Sure.
You want to do.
But it is okay to not make time for those
Yes.
during a time of transition.
Yes.
So,
Or,
yeah.
even if it's not, not the right thing for you, or not
Yeah.
something that, you think would be a good fit or you want to do, it's okay to say no to that as well. And that's something that I'm always working on as well.
So another piece that can be a challenge when life is changing a lot is not finding a way to feel settled in your life in the place where you are. And so we were talking a little bit before we started recording that, for me, I'm guilty of this a lot. We're not currently living in the house, like the actual, just the physical house where we'll live forever. And so, just a tiny example of this is that one of our couch cushions is starting to disintegrate. I don't know if the dog jumped on it, like there's something.
Blame it on the dog.
I'm going to blame it on the my lovely dog. I don't actually think it's probably his fault, but we've had the couch for several years. And so, my husband BJ makes a comment like, oh, maybe we'll need to look at getting a new couch soon. And my automatic response was, well, no, I don't want to buy a new sofa that fits this house, like this room.
Yeah.
Let's just wait and do that when we move. We don't even know. Like, I don't know when that is. I don't have a good time frame.
Yeah.
But I'm guilty of often feeling like, oh, this isn't really like my forever home. It's just where I'm at right now. Even though I do like where I like where we live. I like our town and all those things. I'm guilty of not just really living where I'm at sometimes and feeling like this is just a holding space until I get to the place where I'm going to be, whether that is, and I think I probably did the same thing in grad school, because that is actually a very temporary thing. There's a very end date to that.
Yes.
So maybe it's being in grad school or in college, or maybe it's your first job or whatever that might be. How do we kind of battle against that temptation to not feel settled, to just always look to the next thing? Because I don't think that's healthy. I think we really do need to go, okay, this is where I'm at, even if it is temporary, and really kind of dig in and enjoy that and really live in that space where we are.
And
I don't know if it's as simple as just being present. Maybe that's too cliche, but
it's not cliche, because I think that's important, and that's something that you need to focus on and you need to do. But I've been guilty of that in a lot of points in my life, and then I look back and think, wow, I wish I would have spent more time there, or I wish I would have taken more time to really appreciate that or what I had. But I agree with you. And I mean, for me, I'm at a point in my life where I do feel more settled now. And I think it really became apparent, and I don't want to keep harping on this to make it seem like, oh, you have to have kids to understand all of this. But it was when I became a mom that it really hit home to me that time passes so quickly. And today's October 30th, this is the only October 30th, 2017 that I'm going to have with her and my family. And I think technology plays a part in it too, that we're always kind of looking to the next thing. But I think just unplugging and trying to be as present as you can and enjoy those moments. You mentioned that we as women, we're planners and we look ahead, and I fully support that. I fully agree with that. But I think there's a lot to be said for just living in the moment and appreciating what's in front of you as well.
Which might be as simple as going, yeah, let's buy a sofa for this house. So sometimes it is just the really seemingly small things, but I think those things are often indicative of like a larger issue that your brain is,
Yeah.
or your heart, are always maybe struggling with. And forming friendships where you live now, even if you're going to move for a new job later on. And so, oftentimes those first jobs we take out of college are, especially if you're in a sales type field, you might be in a territory that you're not going to be in forever because you want to get closer to family or friends or home or whatever that might be. And so we can just feel like, oh, I'm just in a holding pattern, so I'm not really going to get involved in anything in the community or worry about making friends here or whatnot. And I think that's a big mistake. And I think that's something I could have done better at throughout the last 10 years of my life too. But maybe that's a piece of advice for anyone out there who's listening, who's early on too, dig into that. Even if it is something that, is probably only a 2 to 3 to 5 year thing, make the most of that and enjoy that. And
get involved. I mean, after you leave college, wherever you go, it's hard to make friends.
Yeah.
Get involved in whether they're clubs or organizations, things that you like, and you'll have some commonality with the other people in there. And you absolutely make friends, because when you have I shouldn't say like-minded people, but people that you enjoy spending time with in that point in your life, that's going to make it exponentially more enjoyable to be in that specific phase. And I'm guilty that I'm a bit of a sensey, so I get attached to people. So whenever I've left a place, it's not necessarily the place or what I've been doing, but it's always the people that I miss the most, and is hard to leave. But I think
you take those friendships with you.
But I think that's a good thing. That means that you've built relationships, and you've had that time with, people come and go in your life, and they're there for a reason.
And I think that's part of the richness of life too. I mean, and you are going to have friendships that will be really strong in different seasons of life, or maybe a strong friendship because of proximity in a town where you lived, and then you moved from there. And but I just think that's part of the richness of life, even though there is a little bit of sadness when you leave some of those things, but that's maybe what makes where you are now special too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about the challenges, or temptations and struggles that can come with all different kinds of changes. But there's another concept that I think, can be a big positive sometimes with changes. So, one of my favorite authors is Gretchen Rubin. She's the author of The Happiness Project and a couple other New York Times bestsellers. She just came out with a new book this fall. So this isn't her latest one, but one of her recent books is called Better Than Before. And it's about forming habits and what makes habits stick. One of the strategies she talks about in that book is called the clean slate. So sometimes we have really big changes in life, like a marriage or divorce or a death or an addition to the family, and those kind of things that feel really big, or a new job or a huge move. And sometimes we can create clean slates by even little things in our life, like rearranging your furniture or taking a different route to work. But that those clean slates give us a chance to really kind of have like a fresh start with some things. And so we've been talking a lot about maybe the challenges, but I think that can be a really fun and exciting and cool thing about big changes in life, is that you kind of have a fresh start for things that you might want to have a fresh start with. And it could be a habit about your eating habits and your health, or your working out, or, I mean, it could be anything.
Yeah.
But have you found that all these changes in your life, have you found any to be like an exciting fresh start ever, or used it as a chance for a new habit? Or have you noticed that your habits have changed when those changes happened in your life?
Yeah, I think your habits change as your life changes and your life evolves. So those things have absolutely changed. But yeah, every time there is a transition or there is a change, I think that's always an opportunity to think about it that from the standpoint that this is going to be something really exciting and new, something I've never done before. A small example of this would be about a month ago, I went on a fishing trip.
I think I saw the photos.
It was something I mean, I qualified for work. So it was,
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of a rewards trip type of a thing, but I'm not a fisherman.
And this, if I remember right, this was not like we're going to the local pond. This was like a really, this was an expedition.
This wasn't like, hey, we're going to take you up to Lake Erie and see if we can catch some perch. No, this was, I flew out to Portland and we fished on the Columbia River.
Yeah.
This company, they treated us really well. Fantastic food. The accommodations were great. But in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm not a fishy type person. But I thought this is going to be 3 nights away from home, clear across on the other side of the country. I don't really want to leave my daughter for that long. Yeah. I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be drinking beer on the boat. But then I thought I had to have a little talk with myself. I said, okay, let's break it down. Have a positive attitude about this. This is a place where you've never been. I'd never been to the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, cool.
So that was my first time there. You've never been...
And a chance to like really see it with that kind of activity. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah.
You've never been salmon fishing before. So this is something that you can experience and check off your list. And you're being rewarded for doing a good job, you know, just... enjoy it, enjoy the time to yourself. And so I really did my best to go into it with a positive attitude, and it was a great trip. It was a lot of fun. You know, so in a sense that was a bit of a clean slate, you know, something I'd never done before, you know, a chance to get away and enjoy this on my own. And I met some great people and another good opportunity for networking. And so I think it all goes back to, you know, not to sound cliche and corny, but focus on the positive things. I mean, you've got a clean slate, a chance to start over in a sense. So and if you're changing jobs, not all the time, but I think oftentimes there's obviously something that you're not happy with your current employment. So you're looking for a change. So, you know, what is that? Get excited about it and just take it all in. Stop and smell the roses.
To quote a line out of that section of Gretchen Rubin's book, there's a magic to the beginning of anything. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of sums all that up. There can be a lot of things you might want to worry about in any change, transition in life, but there's also a magic to the beginning of anything. And if we can focus on that magic and the positives of all of that, then it's a much more exciting, and there'll be some stress that comes along with that. But if we can think about what cool things this might bring into our life, that also attracts cool things to come into our life too. So, tell people where they can find you online. You were also an independent consultant for Rodan and Fields and do some things with that. So tell people what should they look for online to interact with you and connect with you.
Yes, as we mentioned earlier, I am also a skincare CEO. Oh, yeah, that sounded really nerdy. But so on Facebook, it's Ashley Bushman Culp. Pretty easy to find. Instagram, ALB as in boy, CULP as in party. Culp is like one of the most simple misspelled names. But that's my Instagram handle.
You're talking to someone with the last name Ike.
That's true. That's true.
So I get it.
4 letters,
so
but you probably get all gamuts.
You could. It's always funny when like you're standing at a counter with somebody and they're typing your name, like when you order food and they're like, "What's the name?" or whatever, and you give, and you know that you can always tell they've started to type an I, and you're like, it's Ike spelled E-I, and you can see them backspace each time. I always feel, and I just want to be like, just put IKE. Like, I don't care. Like, as long as you call my name, like it doesn't really matter.
As long as I get what I need, it's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
So Facebook and Instagram, and to find some good motivation and inspiration on your Instagram feed. I love your Instagram feed. There's some great stuff on there.
I try to, I'm trying to, at this point in my life, maintain a mantra where I'm more positive about things. There's so much negativity in the world, I feel like, and there really are good people out there, and there's a lot of good things about the community or the country that we live in, and I think it's important to focus on those and try to block the other stuff out.
Awesome. So connect with Ashley online for some more motivation, inspiration, positive outlook that might help you in a change in your life as well. And thanks so much for joining me
this
today.
This was a lot of fun. I love what you're doing with this. This is great. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Now that you've heard some of our thoughts, give us your best tips for managing life's big changes and transitions. Do you stay sane by keeping the same breakfast routine no matter what? Do you set aside blocks of time to deal with settling into a new system? How and when do you ramp up your involvement after a big change? Let us know in the comments on the blog at marleneike.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, live your story.